Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Art of Authenticity. I am here with a very old friend. Wow, when I said that, I thought, wow, that makes us seem old. I'm so sorry, Nick, but very old friend. We've known each other since high school, which we didn't say it before the show, but we both promise privately not to share stories that shouldn't be aired. But I'm really grateful to have her here. She's just an exceptional person, a beautiful friend, somebody I admire and respect. And I know you guys are going to love everything she has to say. She is a clinical social worker. She does psychotherapy and works actively in something called DBT and IFS and has worked in trauma. And I'll let her explain her story her own way. But so much cool information and advice, and somebody who, over decades, Nick, I have had great conversations with. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm
Yeah.
very excited to be here.
Aw, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was I want to get into the systems you teach and like why you felt called to learn DBT and IFS. And for people who are like, what the fuck is that? We will explain. But yeah, I don't know if I know how you made the decision to go down this path of becoming a healer, wanting to help people with these methodologies specifically is one question, but like, really, what was the moment? Was it college? Was it after graduate school? Was there like this moment when I don't, I mean, as much as we hang out or I know your story, I don't know this part. So what was that? Was there a moment or is it kind of a slow decision?
hmm Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've known each other for a really long time, and you know my family, you know my history, you know where I come from. And when I think of how I ended up where I am today, I do think about my mother. I think about the fact that she was a spiritual person and a very loving person, a very accepting person. And there was a lot I got out of that relationship.
Mm.
As you know, my mother was sick for many years. And I think that I was sort of molded into a caretaking role from an early age.
Mm.
Third child, I was her companion. And I that made me feel really good. So I think that that feeling was something that I continued to seek,
Mm.
and it just came through human connection.
And so when you were in college, were you like, this is what I want to do? Or when did you decide to make that into a career, rather than just being a great friend to everybody you meet? Because to know you is like to know that that's true. Your desire for caretaking and being there is very high. Like you're great at asking questions and like engaging me. But like, when did you want to like make that a professional career?
Well, I think when we're in college and those big questions kind of come up, like, what do you want to do with your life, right? And art was always something that was interesting to me. I actually had my major in fine arts, and I was doing painting and drawing. And I stumbled upon an art therapy class as an extracurricular, and that looked interesting. So I took that class, and that's when I realized, wow, I can do art and help people. That was a great moment. And then another great moment was when someone had said to me, well, art therapy is very niche. It's a small, kind of narrow path.
Mm.
If you decide to be a therapist in general, you can treat all sorts of people and use lots of modalities, and you can use art, and it will just open your world. So I took that advice and I got my master's in social work.
It's so funny, right? You just have like that one conversation with that one person, and it hit some kind of weird chord, you know? I was standing in college. I was a philosophy undergraduate, and this guy, we DN, we were TAing logic of all things together my senior year of college. And he just looks at me and he goes, "You should go to graduate school." Like so random. And I was like, "You're right." It's like, you know, it's like these knowings that somebody just kind of turns that switch or something. And you just have this sense of like, oh, right, you're right. And he just handed me the application that he was going to use. He said, "You should apply." This weird guy who I didn't even care that much about. I was like, "Yep," and I just applied. That was that.
Right. Right. Well, you talk about that knowing, and that just kind of caught my attention because I think that that's a lot of what I want to offer to people is to help them find that knowing, because I do think that for a lot of people that's lost.
Yeah.
And that developed over time. That's not something I initially knew was important. But
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
something that people are seeking.
Oh, I mean, right. I think that's like in my work. I mean, the art of authenticity, the reason I do the work I do, I think it's there at times, but it's quite elusive. And as life gets harder or more loud or difficult, it's that connection to that elusive knowing or your trust in it, I suppose, wanes, wax and wanes over life, you know? Sometimes I feel that solid yes, and I'm young and I'm like, yeah, my friend told me and I'm gonna go to grad school. And then there's other times where I start adulting so much that I get in my head and I let it start making decisions, and you wake up and realize, oh my God, what is this? Why do I have this life? I don't want any of this. It makes sense, it's practical, it's logical. People might approve of it, whatever, but that knowing is missing. And that's when life stops being fun, you know? It's like, yeah.
Well, talking back to our history, and when you said that, it just made me think of the Talking Head song, "This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife." It's like that moment of waking up and saying, "Where am I?"
Right? That song is absolutely on point, for sure. Okay, so you made that decision. You went to college. You had that knowing with that beautiful conversation. So to frame our conversation, I want the audience to understand some of the techniques that you work in. DBT is something that you're very passionate about. You shared with me. Maybe you could give a couple minute explanation, like what is that? And when you say you work with trauma, in what way? Like, how do you think of trauma? What are you just give everybody a little taste of Nicole's mind.
Well, um, DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy. And the most important thing to understand and the biggest message about DBT is that we're looking at the dialectic basically with the idea that we can hold two things to be true at once. And um, what I notice is that in our world, and we see it in all levels of what's happening in our world now, even on a macro level and on a micro level. The world is sort of in that all or nothing thinking, in that black and white thinking. And dialectical behavioral therapy gives people skills that they can use to integrate and walk the middle path.
Mm.
Other thing that's really important to understand about DBT is that it is a skills-based therapy, meaning we offer you tools, and those are tools that you practice and you use. And that is broken into four different modalities. One is emotion regulation, which people really want to know about and use. One is distress tolerance. How do we manage stress? The other is interpersonal relationships, which is all about our connections with others. And the basis for all of that is mindfulness. So, this is a therapy that is based on some of the Eastern philosophies of mindfulness practice, basically saying that we can't really implement these other tools unless we have some way to be very mindful about it. So, that's DBT. It's pretty spectacular.
You know,
Sorry, I drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, right. And it's like we chat, but I love that we're doing a little more of a formal dive today because I don't think I knew that. When you say it's in mindfulness, um, so do your clients need to, if somebody wants to do DBT and they don't have a mindfulness practice, how do you get them integrated that way? Is it like, hey, you should meditate or to do this, or you take a little class on it? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think that mindfulness these days is sort of a buzzword, and people are like, well, but what exactly is that? How do I actually do that? And I don't want to meditate. And I'd
Yeah.
be very, I'm very careful about using the word meditate. So DBT can be done in individual therapy. You can learn skills in an individual therapy session, and it can be integrated and kind of peppered into regular talk therapy, or you can go down more of a traditional formal DBT route, which would require you to join a group, which is a weekly skills group where it's almost like a class and you learn. But in terms of how do you integrate or orient someone towards mindfulness, there's so many ways that you can do that. And I know that you know these ways and you have wonderful tools as well. But I like to just give people something that they can work with. Like if you like to go out and take a walk, what would it mean to make it a mindful walk? And how do we get in touch with our mindfulness? And that's through our senses. So I teach people about their senses. What does that look like? What does that smell like? What does that feel like? And if we start to really orient ourselves towards our sensory experience, there's a lot of information there. The other thing that it does is it gives us a break from our thinking mind. Our thinking mind can really,
Ah,
steer us in all sorts of different directions. So having some skills and becoming more mindful allows us to drop out of those thinking thoughts that really are not based in reality. They're just based in our brain's desire to create thought, our brains being pattern making thought machines that we can't always rely on for accurate information.
ma'am. Okay. Anybody that's listening, like just rewind that, hit that, play button 10 times because I just think that's just 1,000% truth, right? We are so fixated. And I love what you said. Go for a walk if you go for a walk. There's so many things out there with habit formation being successful or advantageous a certain way. We got to wake up at 5 a.m. and go jogging. And people used to ask me, Laura, you've been successful. Do you jog at 5 a.m.? I'm like, no, I don't like to jog. But that doesn't mean, and definitely not at 5 a.m. But that doesn't mean that that's not a great way to live. It's just not my way. And so um, creating a foundation for people based on what they already enjoy. If you like to walk, walk. If you like to read, read. If you like to go swim, swim. It doesn't matter. It's just during that process to get away from the mind, focus on everything else, because there's so much happening in life outside of thinking, 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 which we then um, um, begin to believe is the truth of life. This patterned perspective is the only way to see it. So I love that. I love it. I love it. All right. So then quickly, IFS. What is the difference between DBT and IFS?
So, as I said, DBT is a skills-based therapy with lots of tools that we use to help people learn in those different modalities. IFS, although I'm not formally trained in IFS, I lean into the the framework of IFS in that in other words, it's called parts work. It stands for internal family systems, meaning we have lots of different parts of ourselves, like a family within ourselves, that are all jabbing and they're all jabbering away and fighting, and they all want to be heard. And so it's really learning the different parts of ourselves. Some of the common ones are like everybody has a judge or a critic. Some people have a lot of, the fearful part. We also have the like distracted part or the angry part, right? And so we have all these parts, but where are we? Where's our authentic? There's the word authentic. Where's our authentic self?
Yeah.
amongst all of these parts. And in DBT, we call that the wise mind. Where's the wise mind? And one of the things that I always say to my clients is, I'm less interested in what you say and more interested in what you know to be true. And where is that knowing? And how do we find that? So there is an overlap between DBT and IFS in that we really want to access our authentic self or our wise mind, but there's different ways to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's like the consistency between the modalities and mindfulness and the ancient systems, you know, if you start spending enough time with this stuff, you see they're all working really hard to help you towards the same end, and I woke up having sold my company and looking at my life that looked quite successful from the outside. And I had this one realization, the thoughts in my head, all of these thoughts, all of these voices, like which one's mine? And that led to that book, Emotional Obesity. But I really was struck. It was like this moment of, oh no, I don't think I would know my own if it stood up and screamed at me because it speaks in the same cadence. Like if it's maybe a thought my mother put in my mind or an experience or a traumatic point, they don't sound like the original source. They all become something that sounds familiar. So parts therapy, I did that for a while. It's incredible just to start to sort out where's my saboteur, and Mays did that beautiful work on it and archetypes and what have you. So I think appreciate you sharing that. Well, so getting a little deeper, come with
As
me,
you always do.
as I always do.
Okay.
Um, I was checking out your website ever so uh, gingerly as we were going in. I don't want to over prepare because I know you so well, and I wanted this conversation to feel really relaxed and I don't have the privilege of knowing my guests all the time. But I was really struck by your story on your website, Nicole Wagner, therapy.com. Um, just kidding. But there's this sentence at the beginning. I believe everyone has a story and that each story deserves to be heard and understood. I was like, damn, that's that. Like, I felt that. I was like, ah, hell yeah. Like, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
What does that mean to you to put that at the very top of your story and in your website, and to say it that way, that everyone has a story that deserves to be heard and understood? I was like, that's beautiful.
Oh, I just got chills. I really do love that question. It's so real to me, Laura. It's I want to know people's stories. I want to know your story. That means something to me. I'm excited by that. I'm curious about that. That's interesting to me. I want to walk that path. I want to see that. I want to experience that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is human connection. And that's what we're, missing a lot in our world.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you want to hear my story? Why?
oh, um, it feels good to me. So this all comes back to me, right? I'm getting something out of this. There's a reward in this relationship for me. There's a reward in this relationship for you. I feel fulfilled by listen. I feel fulfilled by listening to your story. Um, I just have a curiosity. It makes me feel connected.
Yeah.
And I think that this goes back to what I had said originally, that this is sort of part of my makeup. This is what I was good at as a child. I wanted to, be connected to my mom. I wanted to be connected to others, and she reinforced that in me, and now it's like a passion.
Yeah. Yeah. I have this I have this belief, and I don't know if it's true, but I have this belief. Intimacy, into me, I see me, and then I can connect to you. But that all of us want to be seen. We're like little kids, when they're little, they don't mind. They'll run up to you at 2 or 3 and they're like, see me, they can't get enough. They can't. It's like if you would just stand there and stare and watch them every second of every day, they would enjoy that, right? But they actually are willing to be seen. That's the difference. And they're beautiful to be around because they light up, little kids, they just light up and they love it. And then something happens, and it's the thinking mind, I believe. It's the meta awareness, right? Because little kids don't have the awareness that they're being seen. They are just life force itself. They don't have the what we talked about, the layers of the mind conflicted and you don't say to a kid, "Are you sure that you like pizza?" They're like, "What are you talking about? I fucking like pizza." And you're like, "But you told me you love broccoli. You're lying." They're like, "No, I'm not." Like, they're not confused, right? I don't want this. I do want this. I like to be seen. So this belief of mine, and I would love your reaction, that perhaps what you're offering and what you're enjoying is giving people an opportunity to be seen and heard in an unjudgmental way, non-judgmental way, their story, what matters to them. It is what we really crave. And at the same time, we're so afraid. If you see me, then you will find out the truth. I am flawed. I am an imposter. Right? There's so many ways that we have baked into the idea that when we're seen as adults, there's a lack, there's a worthiness issue. We're not lovable. And so by allowing people to be seen, and then that allows you to connect to you, right? And there's this lovely underpinning of it's safe to be known. And that even if you're sharing, because as a therapist, you're hearing all sorts of stuff, even if you're sharing the darker parts, I'm still here. I'm still curious. I feel that's what we're all desperate for. But I don't know. Tell me your reaction to what I'm saying.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And I just had about a million thoughts. Obviously, Brene Brown, I mean, talks about vulnerability and what does it mean to be vulnerable. I also, was thinking about Lisa D'Amour, who wrote Untangled, about how girls develop and that moment when things change, when they become more vulnerable and more aware of themselves. We used to dance around the pool and like laugh and like just have like ice cream all over our faces and whatever it was, we didn't care. And then came the time when, oh my gosh, everyone is looking at me and how do I look and how am I moving in the world?
Yeah.
Um, so that vulnerability, sure, like comes up, but we work through that. And I think by hearing people's story, you build their, you know, kind of confidence and comfortability in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you say after in your story. In my work, I strive to see the best in people and help them reconnect with their strengths, realign to their values, and shape their stories that feel authentic, empowered and worth living. Right? Because I think as we lose that sensibility, that play, that laughter of living with ice cream on my face and having fun, life ceases to feel good. And then choosing what we want to do on a day-to-day basis becomes extremely difficult. Um, and our story, our connection to ourself, diminishes. But the cool thing is it's sitting right there.
Right. And this is what you do too, Laura. I mean, this is where we kind of overlap, right? You're also helping people find that place within themselves or open themselves up to another part of them or to use themselves in some way to sort of have a different kind of an experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes.
I do. And I do it a different way, but it's all one way in the end. It's to get back to what you said about the walk out of the mind into the senses, right? And then as we do that, all of a sudden inspiration shows up, creativity shows up, connection to self shows up, and ease shows up, which is my belief is that your spirit, like that's your connection to your authentic self, your spiritual self, whatever you want to call it, right?
We are so underutilizing our
Yes.
abilities, right? I say like we've got what if you're, 2 inches up here on your forehead, your brain area is like 2 inches wide, 3 inches wide, right? How many inches is the rest of you? I mean, there's just so much more that we can access. And it can lead to change and it can lead to feeling more empowered, more comfortable within ourselves. There's answers to questions that we have. Um,
Yeah. So what on that? I mean, you've been doing this for a while. I'm very curious to ask people, healers, what are you seeing? Like, what is that through line? Why do people come to therapy? What are they ultimately looking for? Like that they can say, I'm done. I don't need any more from you. What is it that is the satiation point? Like they come in with what and they're leaving because they now have. Like, what is the through line of that in your experience?
well, I think that we've said a lot about being seen and heard. I think that a lot of people need to feel like what they're experiencing is valid. Aside from that, I think people need clarity. I think there's a lot of noise. I mean, we could have a whole nother discussion about the noise in the world and how distracting it is from finding clarity. So they come in with a lot of noise, and we kind of have to, as you see in my website, I talked about sort of picking through like if you have a necklace that's knotted up, right? Loop by loop, like let's kind of peel back the layers, as they say, and really hear what's at the root of what's going on. And a lot of times people just they don't know how to do that on their own. They don't know what they might uncover. So I can support people through that process.
Yeah.
Um, I also think people are missing community. And ever since COVID, right, we're feeling very alone in the world. We're feeling very divided in the world. And we want to come to a place that feels like a sanctuary, like a safe place to sort through and find where we can make more connection. Um,
Yeah. And if you're disconnected from yourself, you really can't get the connection you're seeking. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And it's like then we seek and seek and seek, shop more, do more, travel more, busy ourselves, create more noise. And it becomes this cycle you can't get out of. And it's so Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, but it's like we just are always home. We just forgot where to look. And we're so external or in our brains, as you said, the 2 inches versus the rest of our physical form. And I'd argue, you know, that's connected to a field, which we are as well. But yeah, it's not as hard as people think. Is that true?
I think people have a lot of ideas around what therapy might look like if they've never done it before. Um, there's people come in with all different constructs of what it should look like, and that it's going to be this big, breaking open, or there's this idea of the slippery slope. Like if I get started, it's never going to stop, or if I cry, the tears are just going to run forever and ever. And again, our thinking brain protecting us from sort of taking this dive into vulnerability, really, and
Yeah.
defining who are we? What's important in our lives? And again, how do we want our lives to look like and what makes our lives worth it?
Right. And ultimately, wouldn't that be the most important thing? I mean, you and I think, had a shared passion for math in high school, meaning lack of.
Yeah.
Um, and I watched my son go back through school and the quantity of math and science skills that are required versus basic human functioning skills. How do I manage stress? How do I manage overwhelm? And we're all going to become part of a community of a family, right? Like most people have some form of relationship. If they don't get married, if they don't have kids, whatever, but there's some basic communication skills, basic ability to like connect to yourself, know what you want. I mean, do you find I feel like this question, like, what do you really want? Takes people to their knees.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you talk about connection, and back to sort of just this human connectivity. Our communication skills are terrible.
Terrible.
We say things we don't mean, we mean things we don't say, and we don't know how to say things in a way that um, so that we can get what we need from one another or even from ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's something else that I really love about DBT because one of the modules, interpersonal connectivity, is really about how do we communicate in a way that's effective.
How do we, Nick? Help us. What is one thing? So people are listening and they're like, oh, yeah, like, I mean, here's the thing, right? You get older and it's like just getting the confidence, Brene Brown, to be vulnerable with yourself alone in your shower or your your private time. Like, what do I really want? And then saying it to yourself. Now you're faced with this horrible moment of stress and anxiety. Like, I'm going to share my need with my partner, my child, my friend, whoever, work, colleague, situation, whatever. And it's paralyzing because I mean, you tell me what you think. I think people think once they say it because it was so hard for them to get there, they should get everything they need.
Right.
There's no
Mhm.
negotiation. Like this is, I've said it now, give it to me. Like little spoiled children running around, so not connected and getting their needs met. It's nobody's fault, but that by the time they finally get there, it's so feeling raw and vulnerable that not getting their need met feels debilitating. So, what's a tip or like, first of all, if I'm saying something incorrect, correct me, but what is a tip that people can use right away to um, find out what they need and then communicate that without um, coming across in a way that it fails, I should say, right? Like without uh, reinforcing that your needs aren't meaningful.
Hmm. Wow, there's a lot to be said there. First, I would say failure might the person who you're communicating to might not be able to give you what you need and might experience your expression as a failure, right? So we that's information and we work with that and figure out how do we accept the limits of the relationships that we're in and make choices about that. That's
Mm.
one thing. But I want
I
to
want
put
to
ourselves,
pause there because that's a hard one.
oh yeah. Yep.
That's a hard one. Okay. I just
It,
wanted to like hit pause for 10 seconds because like
right.
really pausing and recognizing there's a limit here and maybe it won't be what I want and then deciding if you're okay with that.
And it's funny that this is coming up because just this past week we talked about radical acceptance in our DBT group and the idea of acceptance. And it's very hard. And the idea of acceptance, let me clarify, doesn't mean that we have to like something. But what it means is that we're making a choice to do something different. And if two roads diverged in the woods and you're taking the one that's less traveled by, um, you're making a choice to do something different because if we're doing the same thing over and over again, we're on the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Acceptance is an opportunity to get off the hamster wheel and make a different choice. It's not easy, but there's a lot of possibility in that. Um, so that's kind of what I would say about limits.
Yeah. I had a flashback when you said that to us in our
Yeah.
20s, maybe, where that quote was something you've cared about for a long time. And I think you sent me the book or the quote or something. That was very interesting.
Road Less Traveled.
Yeah.
I haven't revisited that book in a long time, but I do know that the first line of that book, the very first line is life is difficult.
It is. It is. And I think our grandparents, our great grandparents, they would say, it's life. I mean, it's life. I mean, in a way, I've been thinking recently, do we all sort of collectively have an expectation of life that is not attainable?
Yeah,
I don't think we think it's supposed to be difficult. I think we think my life should be everything I want. And why is that not happening? And setting that expectation past a point, then everything feels like a disappointment is something I think about.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think you sent me that book. I swear to God, I just had a like a flashbulb like memory.
Probably did, but I need to reread it because things we've made a lot of kind of progress in this kind of world. And so uh but I do know that, the poem about the Robert Frost poem of two roads diverged in the woods, and I take the one less traveled by, and that makes all the difference,
Yeah,
you know, is really a nice image.
beautiful. Yeah. And what about psychedelics? Where are you on this topic? As a therapist, this stuff is like everywhere. Do you think it's helpful at times? Not at all? Like what's your stance on it?
Honestly, I don't know enough. I haven't studied it enough. I haven't been exposed to it enough. It's not something that I practice.
Hmm.
I do know that people get results, and I also know people that haven't had amazing experiences. So I think just being in the hands of a really trained professional, in the right kind of setting is just what I would say is really important about that. But I do believe that the brain chemistry can be changed and can be, successful. I think that there can be success in that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think it can be used to just be high all the time, or you can get outcomes. It's kind of like dependent. Yeah. So here's a weird question, but the brain can be rewired. We get to a place we feel better. I mean, what's a quote healed person look like? What does it look like when we're functioning optimally? Because it's not perfection, but what does it look like when we're okay enough? There's a lot of talk around healing, but I mean,
Right? What does that look like? I think it looks like someone who is tuned into themselves. I think it just, it's not healed. It's an ongoing practice where you're catching yourself and you're aware of, you know, is this, a decision that I'm making because I have a certain idea of how it should be, or is this a decision I'm making because it truly feels right to me? Being in tune with yourself, being in alignment with your authentic self, and that takes practice. It takes knowing yourself. Are you staying within that sort of, as they say, stay in your lane? Like, are you in the lane of yourself, or are you kind of getting pulled in different directions, and knowing yourself well enough to just keep returning back to the practice of self-awareness, I think.
and knowing yourself full circle to where we were talking at the beginning, but what is that feeling for you when you know this is true for me? How do you experience that?
It takes quiet. You have to you have to take a pause. You have to take a beat. It's giving yourself that moment, and it's just a knowing.
Hmm.
Um, it's where you feel really relaxed and where you feel comfortable.
Hmm. Yeah. And the knowing, is it in the head, heart, gut?
For me, I would say it's in the heart.
Hmm.
I mean, you can feel it. I tell people to put their hand on their heart and apply just a little bit of pressure, and there's something happens.
Hmm.
It's like a warmth or like a safety or a comfort in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
So, yeah.
awareness, like when you breathe into it, it feels expansive and open and the mind gets quieter, less
Yeah.
less fighting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, um, if you were to think of an audience of people who are focused on trying to live more authentically, get out of their minds into their heart, hope to have a life that feels aligned and I don't know, like they're feeling stuck, they're feeling lost, they're feeling like a lot of pain or trauma. What are some things they could, I mean, I know DBT is something you would suggest or working with a therapist, but they're hanging out right now with with a podcast. Like, what could they do that would be, um, I don't know, a bit of a daily ritual? They go for a walk, they go into their senses, but like, what does that look like in a bit more of a detailed sense?
I mean, really, the first thing that comes to mind is we have to slow it down. We have to slow down just a little bit, the pace of our lives. I know that feels scary for people. I think that people, enjoy the chaos, they enjoy the rush. There's something exciting about that. And also there's a little fear around slowing down because then, oh, all of a sudden I'm thinking about other things that might not feel as good or might,
Mm,
so but trusting, slowing down just a little bit, and then finding like something really small, the touch points, I call them, just a small little moment of the day where you look at something and pause in that moment, something that's beautiful, and allow that to kind of seep in and hold that, right? We're not acknowledging the beauty in life. We're not taking advantage of it. We can take that in and hold that within ourselves. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something really small. It can be feeling the sun come in through the window and feeling that warmth kind of bathe you just for a minute and then just saying, "Oh, that's so nice. That feels good." You
yeah.
know, some self-nourishing, like we're all doing the best that we can. We're all doing, we're all good people doing the best that we can, and we need to build upon that.
Mm, well, that's beautiful. And I felt that in my body. Um, I appreciate you so much. And
Oh, I
was thinking
appreciate it.
about your mom and the story you shared and how you were caregiving and how you were a companion and how much you enjoyed that process and how it's allowed you to live this experience and help so many. And so I was thinking she must be right now so proud and so grateful for that acknowledgement. And I just felt her presence and such a beautiful human. And so just maybe full circle have a moment of, it's beautiful that your story started that way. And if she helped align you to this path and the beauty that you've experienced and how many people you've helped, including myself, send a little love and acknowledgement her way. And thank you so much for being here.
Gosh. That's so nice, Laura. Really. And you're part of the journey, right? Here we are, how many years later, and landing here together and sharing this kind of, curiosity and interest and passion that we do, um, is really special.
Thank you. Thank you. I won't share. I'm dying to share like one little high school story, but I just
Oh no, we won't go there.
So if people are looking for you, NicoleWagnerTherapy.com, anywhere else that you'd like to that they can find you, or is that the best spot?
It's the best spot. Yeah, that's my website, NicoleWagnerTherapy.com, and all the information is there. So if you're interested in learning more, that's where you would find more out.
And you work in a handful of states right now. Is that true?
Yes, I'm licensed in New York, Illinois, Connecticut, and Florida.
Amazing. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you so much.
So much, Laura.